I suppose everyone. Welcome to the series Brown Bag event. It's a hybrid event. We have in-person attendees and we have people connecting through Zoom. The meeting is being recorded, so it will be made available to the attendees. As a recording later, it will be posted on series website. I'll be very brief. I'll introduce our speaker, distinguished speaker, Dr. Harsha Ratnaweera. He is a professor at the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. He's a fellow of International Water Association and who has built a very large international network of water scientists and engineers. The network that spans multiple continents, 51 countries involved with more than 80 institutions participating in the network. We're looking forward to Dr. Ratnaweera's presentation today. And at that point, I'll pass the baton to the speaker. It may take a minute or two for Dr. Ratnaweera to share the screen and start his presentation. So please be patient. And again, welcome. And I'm looking forward to the talk. So mostly I would say present. Camera or the camera.
Hi.
Good morning, colleagues. It's an honor to have this opportunity to present some of our experiences related to establishing a global network, global educational and research network. So I'm going to present the process of establishment, the challenges what we met, and also the opportunities which these type of networks creating. So I'm going to say a few words about my university, my team, and myself. Then a few words about the need and the potential, and how we started this network and how we expanded, strengths and advantages, challenges and threats, and the way forward as we see how we can build and keep our network sustained. So we are from the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. Norway is a small country with about 5 million people. And we have 10 universities, and ours is second oldest university with 160 years of history. It was an agricultural university to start with, but now we have an engineering department covering number of specialties, and we are producing the master's engineers, 2/3 of the master's engineers for the water and wastewater sector in Norway now. We have long traditions in international education and research collaboration. We are about 6,400 students and about 2,000 staff. We have 7 faculties, and our faculty's name is Science and Technology. And in this faculty, we have 6 institutes or departments. So Department for Building and Environmental Technology is the department which we belong to. And in this department, we have 2 research groups, and one is named as Water and Environmental Engineering, and this has 3 directions. So one of the directions is called Process Analytics and Water Treatment. So this is the group which is presented here. We have 2 full-time professors, so myself and my colleague Sakar Maletsky, who is an associate professor. And then we have 2 postdoctoral fellows, Agnieszka and Gautam. And then we have an administrative support. These are the 5 full-time positions. In addition to that, we have a number of adjunct professors and associated colleagues, and also lab technician working in that. So the history for this building this network, I think it also has something, some special features or some reasoning for this type of networks. I consider myself as a fairly international person. I was born in Sri Lanka, and when I was 18 years, I moved to Kiev, Ukraine, to do my master's, and came to Norway to do my PhD. And now it is the 35th year I'm in Norway. So the last 10 years, I worked at our university as a full professor. Before that, 10 years as an adjunct professor. 20 years worked at NIVA, Norwegian Institute of Water Research, as the Director of Innovation and International Projects. It's at that time I was an adjunct professor of this university. I started to work in China and Sri Lanka projects since 1996 and worked mainly in Asian and African countries in the 90s and early 2000s. So that background gave me both an interest, engagement, and also confidence to start working in international projects. So I start thinking, so why did we started this international network? So if I think back to year 2012, that's when I started my full-time position at the university. And as a young or as a new colleague in a university, then there are many things that you can choose from. There are different paths, not necessarily that one of them you need to choose, but number of paths. Teaching, consultancy, make yourself visible in the professional arena, involved in cutting edge research, serving national needs, because from time to time we have some responsibilities from the university to contribute to national agendas and national responsibilities. So, and then the list continues. As university staff and researchers, we would like to increase our publications, especially in good journals, and also work for a worthy cause. For example, Water for All, like SDG 6, giving a hand to colleagues. If you know that there are some of university colleagues from different countries where they are not in the same level as where you are or the other universities, maybe you can work with them. And maybe you have some management ambitions. So become the head of the department, head of research, dean, and then find personal preferences. So when you start a new career at a new place, as either as a young scientist, young researcher, or young staff member, or a staff member in a new university, you have all these paths to choose from. So you need to do some thinking, and the ones noted in red here, these are the choices which I made. I thought these are the things that I will be working at our university in the next years. So this has given me the ambitions to start working in international projects. So then a few words about how it was started and how it continued to expand. There are external factors which may function as ambition triggers. So for example, lack of access to interesting projects. You are starting your career in a new environment, and if you are not invited or integrated into ongoing interesting projects, or if there are no interesting projects, then you will feel that you should look for a new project by yourself. Lack of finances and flexibility. This is, of course, this depends on the university and the department to department. For example, in our universities, the financing for example, go for a conference, even go for a meeting, that you need to apply for funding from the dean or the head of the department if you are going to use the faculty funding. But if you have projects, then sometimes that you have much higher flexibility. And the lack of staff, team members, if you want to build a team, if you want to have a group of both faculty and PhD students and postdoctors to work in your selected area of research, this could also be a constraint. If you don't get enough staff from the faculty funds, then you can look for projects which can give financing for this. And then also there could be some urge to realize some personal dreams. So for example, in my case, I was, as I said, I was born in Sri Lanka. So I wanted always to have some relationship, professional relationship with Sri Lanka, like establishing a project with Sri Lankan universities. And then I studied at the Kyiv Polytechnic Institute in Ukraine, in Kiev. And then where I had my best years, 7 years. So then there was another personal dream to establish a project. So these two are examples why I started looking at establishing projects in Sri Lanka and Ukraine, among other places. So the start was that in mid 2011, I knew that from next year or 2012, I am going to move to the university. So I start bilateral discussions with my colleagues in Ukraine to establish a collaborative project. So luckily, we got this first project. It was a 5-year project of $0.8 million, where we had 3 universities from Ukraine, 1 from Belarus, and 1 each from Kazakhstan and Tajikistan were participated. So this was the start of the network. So we used the name Water Harmony because the project was about harmonizing the education, graduate education in water. So the Water Harmony name suits very well. And then we continue to have the name also in our projects. In 2015, we got an Erasmus funded project. No, it was this I'm showing the continuation of the first project. The first phase was 8 universities from 5 countries. And then the second phase was 10 universities from 7 countries. And then we also had an EU Erasmus project with universities from Ukraine, Sri Lanka, Germany, Poland, and Norway. And then it continued. We had projects with Asia and Africa funded by the Norwegian foreign aid system. And then some other Norwegian funding has also created the projects with industrial countries. So this was the start of our work with our groups work with universities from the US, Canada, Japan, and China. So Michigan State University became a member of this consortium or these projects since 2007. So this is my, I think this is my third visit to this university. So if I look at our active projects, at present, we have one EU Horizon Europe project, the newest program, and we have 4 EU Erasmus projects, 1 EU ERANET project, 3 Research Council project, and 1 NORAD or Norwegian Foreign Aid projects, and plus 3 small projects with fewer partners. So this has now resulted in a global network of 82 universities from 51 countries, representing all continents. So more than 2/3 of these partner universities, they are involved in ongoing projects with us, and more than 70% of these projects, they are initiated and led by our team. So I was asked to do a presentation to our younger colleagues at my university who have just started their career at the university, and to share some information, experience about how to build a network, how to build a career at the university. So I used this slide to share my experience with them. I said that if you are not integrated into an international project immediately, then think about the low-hanging fruits. Don't go to the most competitive high-end projects where the success rate is maybe 5%, but rather go for low-hanging fruits, the projects where you have some competitive advantage and where you can also have a much higher success rate. So for example, in my case, since I lived in Ukraine for 7 years, I could speak Russian. And this was a competitive advantage to have the Russian knowledge and also have some contacts with Eurasian and Russian-speaking countries. Excuse me. So what I did was that I searched for project possibilities, and I applied for a project with Eurasian countries. Of course, there are other possibilities. There are other US-funded projects, bilateral projects, or the projects which your colleagues would support you to initiate. So that should be the starting point. And then if you are not visible, that means you are not known among the professional team in your country or outside. This is also quite important. Then you need to start working with this. So you have to do some voluntary work. So for example, to work in a board of water organization, for example, European Water Organization or Norwegian Water Organization. There are a number of things that you can come into, and then you will build your network. You will be known to the others, not only you, but also your organization. Of course, MSU is well known, so you don't have to market MSU as such. But for a university like ours, which has a different focus prior to we were there, we had to market that, yes, our university is also working with in the water sector. Then, of course, being a researcher and being a faculty member, you have to have a good publishing record. So you need to start publishing, and then you can consider moving into high-end or highly competitive projects. This is what we did. So our first project with the North America and Japan started in 2017, 2015, 2017. So this was after 6 years. So after some years, some time, that you come to a situation that there are a number of possibilities which you don't have to look always for the low-hanging fruits, but you can choose where you want to work. So this is what we are doing. This is what we have been doing during the last 2 or 3 years. We have been more selective and more critical when choosing projects. Then I would like to focus on some strengths and advantages of having these type of projects or networks. So, especially in Europe, in the European Union research programs like Horizon 2020 or Horizon Europa program now, we see that some of the research groups always get invited to proposal consortium. So in EU projects have necessarily become big and large consortiums with maybe 5 or 10 universities are going together. There are virtually no single unit projects now. So how do you get into these type of consortiums? And you can see that some of our colleagues, some universities are always invited to these proposal consortiums. The start is difficult. You are not confident whether you can deliver what they ask, and no one knows you. Who are you? Which university are you from? But with time, things will change. You can say that, yes, I have been working in this project. I have this project and that project, and I've been working with this high-end universities like Michigan State University. And then you will see that situation is changing. So finally, after a few years, you will come to a situation that you can choose from the best options to proceed. However, if this success or this progress is dependent on a team of colleagues who are highly professional, knowledgeable, capable, and even influential. Influential means that they should have right contacts and to talk with financing agencies and the industries, and also among the other consortium. So another advantage is when you are working in number of projects, you get a unique possibility to compare and learn from different projects and project teams so that you will become better and more competitive with the time. So if we look at how we have organized our projects, so in our university, the faculty has to use about 40% of our time for teaching and supervision, 40% on research projects, 20% on administration. So I think it's pretty common in many universities because as faculty, we have to not only to work with, not only to do lectures, but also to work with research. So here I list up some of the subjects at which we have the responsibility to teach, and then some other related activities. So we have held an international water summer school since 2012 in June and July. So it's like a 3 weeks intensive course. And we have had students from 10 to 22 countries and 30 to 85 students each time. So you are creating a truly an international environment. So these young students, they built their network with the future colleagues, and these are the people who are going to be the future administrators, political leaders, and scientists and staff members. So this is a good investment and good use of their time. During this short period, they get a lot of experience and networking. We have also involved in a number of international summer schools organized by other universities, especially the Chinese universities. And these projects, of course, this gives great benefit to you as a person, but it's not limited to yourself. We can get international students to our universities because we have collaboration with our international partners. Our students can get fellowships to other universities. We can fund our students to other universities. Like we have one of our master students visiting MSU this time through one of these projects, and another student went to University of Calgary. And it is easy to organize visiting fellowships to postdocs and also sabbatical. Sabbatical is something that's a privilege that we as faculty gets every 5 or 6 or 7 years. And since that you have a huge network, it is easy to choose and discuss and find the best place to do your sabbatical. So in my case, I distributed my sabbatical year among 5 universities in the US, China, Sri Lanka, and Singapore and Australia. So it was a great opportunity. And also the academic ranking of world universities, that is also important, but some universities, they say that they don't care. Like our university also said that, yeah, that's, it's nothing to worry about. So we are, because we were always below 800, 900 or 1000 levels, but the last couple of years we were between, let's say between 500 and 700 in the international ranking, the total ranking, and by specialties, sometimes we were among the first 200 universities. And when I analyze the data, the scores, we see that this network of ours, international projects, has contributed a lot for our universities to come to this level. So there is, of course, now increased engagement and understanding of the value of academic ranking. So I hope that our university will creep further upwards in the time to come. So a few words about the challenges and threats. It's these type of networks, they do not represent only the it's not a dance on the bed of roses, but they also demand quite a lot from you. So it will never be 8 to 4 job. Many evenings, many weekends, and even nights you have to devote. And we have also to remember that teaching is our main job. And when you have this type of number of projects, it's easy to get carried away with projects and activities related to that. And another thing is that the more you have projects, the more projects that you win, you will also become hungry, and you will feel that, yes, I should apply for more projects. And getting more projects, it does not solve everything, but it also brings enormous amount of work. With the project management, scientific management, accounts, networking, conflicts, and students, I'm sure that you have experienced all of this in your career. But nevertheless, we are still applying, we are still planning to expand our network. So conflicts, this is something that, this is a role that which at least I did not expect to get involved in, or I didn't have any ambition to get involved in. But when you are working in an international environment with a number of people from different cultures, different professional backgrounds, different priorities, then it is impossible to avoid personal conflicts. There are not many, but there will be. There could be professional conflicts because there could be schools of researchers which has difference of opinion. And I experienced this once, because we were planning to, we had an ambition to develop a textbook with the contribution from different professors from different universities. And of course, there were a couple of professors who were not willing to accept the other colleagues' opinion or the view. So I have to go in there and try to negotiate and find a solution there. And then, of course, the political conflicts. One of the best example is what's happening in Ukraine and Russia now. So luckily, we don't have any projects where Russian researchers are involved, but it was quite possible because we were quite close to work with Russia. So if we had, then we would have had a problem to work with. Because even 10 years ago that I felt that bringing in Russian researchers to the same table as Ukrainian colleagues could have triggered some unnecessary discussions. And then another aspect what we see is that national and regional factors, collaboration with some countries are not always problem-free. So for example, Norway has now restricted collaborations with Russia, China, Iran, Pakistan, and another country. So which means that if I am going to accept a PhD candidate from any of these countries, or if you are going to have a staff member in any of these countries, or even a visit, then we have to get an additional approval. And I understood that it's the case. It's the same here at MSU as well. This is fine. In most cases, our colleagues will get the approval, but it means that additional formalities which you have to go through and you have to convince, you have to document, and also you have this feeling of some feeling that what if you don't know everything about the person that you are working with, because then you are going to be in bad shape. You will have to use a lot of energy to come out of these situations. Another issue is the vulnerability. Team members with different priorities and agendas could be there. Devotedness of these team members could vary, and competing with the counteroffers. If you work with a team member and if we help the team member to grow, and then of course he or she will be quite attractive in the market, then other universities and other consulting companies can come up with offers which we probably can't not match. So there should be other ways to keep the team interested in your team or in your work. Disagreements of strategic priorities when the group is growing, it's becoming more and more heterogeneous. Then it could be different strategic priorities. External pressure by colleagues, university administration for the team, whether you can grow, whether you can work on this subject or not this subject. So there could be a number of issues. And it's also may lead to spiraling your work, leading to exhaustion or burning out, because you initiate these projects to work with research, but at the end you see that it's the administration work takes much more of your time than focusing on research. So it might make you to give up, but in most cases that you will fight, and because you have this interest to continue this interesting life, I would say. So when looking back, our let's say endeavor in building and maintaining this network, then I thought this final slide could say a few words about the way forward, how we should continue as we as a group, or if you have a group, if you want to build up a group. So the first point is build a group with strong and dedicated members. It's not only the faculty. You need to have postdocs, PhD students and MS students, administrative secretaries, that the whole group has to be strong and dedicated to what you are doing. You can't have, if it is an expanding and a strong network, you cannot have, let's say, passengers in this team. You can tolerate to have a couple of them, but you can't have the majority of them as passengers. You need to have devoted people. And then second point is that it's necessary to have a strategic reorientation from time to time. This is something that we have not done regularly, but now during the last year, we have done this, and also this year. We need to look at the external factors and also internal factors, and to do a strategic reorientation or doing a strategic plans and activity plans, action plans. This is really good, because then you discuss your path with your team members, and also you have a plan, time-bound plan, that everyone knows that where, how, and where we would like to do. And then you should also find a colleague or two who can take over when the time is approaching, because these networks should not be dependent on one person. So you need to work with a young colleague who also would have the same ambitions that you had a few years back, and then to have a gradual transfer of the leadership. And what we also noted is social networking is crucial, especially when you can't compete with the financial benefits from other projects. So if I look at my colleagues from Eurasia, Asia, and Africa, they have excellent possibilities to work as consultants in lucrative projects funded by World Bank or Asian Development Bank, African Development Bank, and they get paid very good consulting salaries. Let's say like a couple of $100 per day, or sometimes per hours. But none of our projects can do that sort of funding. So how do you keep them motivated? Then you have to have something else. So what we found was the social networking is quite important, which was disturbed and destroyed during the COVID, of course. But otherwise, when we are having project meetings, we make sure that we have enough time, that we have, we go for a dinner together, and we go for excursions. And while doing that, we build up our network, the social networks. So I remember several of my colleagues from Eurasia, they said that from one side, we meet more often than some of their relatives. And the other one is that they are actually counting how many months or days to the next meeting, because this friendship is real. And even the project, when the projects are over, still the network will function, which means that we can work to find new projects to continue. So that's all with what I thought to present today, share my experience in the process of building this network. So I hope that you got some inside information about how we built this one, and where we are today, and what are our concerns. So if you have any questions or comments, I would be happy to answer. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, so I have one question, Professor. So when you say it's important for young researchers to be visible. I wonder if you have any advice for the young researchers, and then here there's the specific ways for young researchers to be visible.
Being visible for young researchers during my initial stage is quite different as it is now. Now you have a lot of other opportunities, right? So because the social networks like LinkedIn, ResearchGate, and these are good opportunities to present your work. And then you can also establish network with like-minded or researchers in your same same field. That's one thing you can do. But again, if you think about your local, building up your local visibility, then I know that students in our university, they have their student organization. It's for the water group. And this group has close relationship with the professional water specialist in the field. And they also have a young water specialist group. So, and then in these groups that you can volunteer to be, let's say, the president, secretary, or take a task and say that, yes, I'm going to do this. I would like to organize this seminar, something like that. So this way you are showing something beyond what you can show through your paper or research work. And it helps because these type of activities and people with such capabilities are required, and even the employers, they are looking for these type of people rather than people who are killing the social environment, you know. So there are a lot of possibilities.
Can you talk a little bit more about how you got from Ukraine to Norway?
Okay.
It seemed like an obvious
No,
path.
no, it's even I could take the both cases. The first case was how a Sri Lankan end up in Ukraine.
Yeah,
right.
That too.
Yes.
There are a lot of stuff.
in 80s and 90s, the former Soviet Union had a policy to award undergraduate fellowships to developing countries, and that was as a part of their.
That's the part I knew about.
Yes. So at that time we had like hundreds of fellowships, and I got one of them. And then when I did my master's in Ukraine, I always wanted to do a PhD, but then when the years passed by, I understood that doing a PhD in Norway, in Ukraine, would not be the best thing I can do. So I wanted to find a place to do a PhD in a different place. So what I did was that this was in 1986, my final year.
Good time to get out of Ukraine, given Chernobyl.
Yes, well, it was a bit too late because I had to experience that April. But I start looking at possibilities. Of course, at this time, there were no computers or internet. You had to do it physically. So I knew about the possibilities in the US, Australia, and England, these places. So what I did was I went to the embassies and found the list of universities, potential universities, and contact numbers. But I had a friend living in Norway, whom I have visited already in my second year of studies. And then I visited the university as well, this university, where I did my PhD. It's not where I'm working now, but the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, which is the leading engineering university in there. So I met with the professor and said that I would like to work in the water sector. This was my specialty. And when the time came, I sent a lot of applications to many universities, and one university in Norway. And I think there were about 70 applications which I sent, I remember. I bought a typewriter from UK with one finger typing and did this. So I think I got at least 4 offers. one from the Pennsylvania State University, and they said that yes, you are welcome, but you have to pay $70,000 in those years for school fees. And Australia, Queensland, it's also the same, 17,000 Australian dollars, and University of London, they asked for £5,500, and none of them were offering full fellowships. They say that yes, we can give a fellowship for 10, 20, 30%, but not much. But the professor from Norway, he said, yes, you are welcome, but I apologize, I cannot give you a fellowship from the day one, but I'm sure that you will get something from this after 6 months. That was the choice. But I see that many students from Asia and Africa, they get fully funded fellowships in the US and the UK. For somehow I didn't know, I didn't get this opportunity. I didn't got this opportunity. Could have changed my path where I am, but I have no regrets. Yeah, it's a life full of experiences. The majority of foreign students at MSU, they are funded by the university or other grants, or partially funded by other.
Depends on the department and college to some degree, you know, in some cases they're, that's not the case, that they have a certain amount of their own fellowships that are available for, doesn't matter whether they're foreign or domestic students.
Okay.
They're
Yeah.
equally available
Yeah.
to them. But some colleges, for example, Vlad's College, I think, tends to bring all its graduate students in to work on grants. And
Yeah.
so it's fully funded because you're working on existing
It's a
grants.
grant, yeah.
that's, the faculty member has. So you become part of their lab
Yeah.
or whatever. It doesn't happen in political science or
Yeah.
economics where I'm most involved, but
Okay.
there are a few fellowships here and there.
Yeah.
It's very competitive, but it's not that easy. But MSU is always looking for good graduate students, so that's the key thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the things are becoming more and more systematized, that now in our university, all PhD vacancies we have to announce openly and anyone can apply. So this is also a challenge because the young graduates, they compare, well, the young graduates, when they're going out, they probably have a family, or they're going to establish a family, that you need to have a home, a car, and funding to run a family. And then, of course, what they look at is not your, the academic advance, the progress, but financing, the salary plays a big role. That's why our PhD fellowships are, they have been in the same level as the salaries of the industry, private sector, right? So this is why our fellowships are quite high. The PhD fellowship at our university is living allowance is about $5,000 per month, right? It's taxable. And that's about the salary that you get in the industry. But now the industry is paying even more, but our stipends cannot be increased even more. So we have a challenge. So the majority of our applicants, they are non-Norwegians. And on the other hand, we have a need, we should continue to have at least some Norwegians in our academic careers who knows the Norwegian background, the language and everything. So yeah, so it's changing the environment. Yes. So Vlad, I talked about the process and also the challenges and advantages, and also some factors of motivation to to do or not to do. Because it's not always that of course, it's nice and fancy to have so many projects and so many networking, but it also demands quite a lot of your time. Actually, without your family's blessing, you can't get involved in this.
So I'm sorry, it was on the work, so to speak, scheduled meeting where we actually discussed the release, how we can respond to what's happening in Ukraine. But and it was no. And one thing that came up is the importance of a network, scholarly network, where when I attended yesterday a webinar with several university rectors before our meeting in the morning. There was an early morning meeting with the rectors. So, for example, forgot his last name, rector of Kiev National University, Tarashchenko was there. Kiev Mikhil Academy, my research of international was there, which changed the minutes with the Japanese. It was Dnipro University of Internal Affairs. And they all talked about what they need. You know, one thing which came, how we can help, of course, the question was, and I responded. And the main theme, and I told this to the deans, they want to talk about money. I told them, not only, in fact, mostly not money. They want to have support because the teaching capacity is diminished. They often don't have the brick and mortar place anymore where they can teach their students. Ukrainian Catholic University sent all their lawyers to Strasbourg. They don't have anybody to teach their law students. They say, help us, continue our mission. Now that we are, to continue actually with our students. And so I wish I could be in both meetings at the same time, because in my mind right now, they're connected, right? Through this point that you are building a community where some can help others when those others are in trouble, and others can help those some when some need help, right? So I think there's this unique additional benefit to these large networks that kind of we're building, where like this movie Avatar, right? These trees are all connected, right? So you're connected to the trees, right? Anyway. Sorry, Harsha, I wish, but it's recorded, so I'll watch it. Now bring my questions on.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have seen this challenge in supervision capacity even before the war started, because often what I see is that our colleagues in Eurasian countries, they have much higher lecturing loads than what we have, right? And this has leading to that they hardly have any time to do their research or focusing on their strategic work. What we have started or established and trying to expand is that we offer we promote the joint supervision of master's PhD work. So in some universities it's allowed to have us as co-supervisors, and some universities they do not allow in the formally, but at least informally we do it. So from one side, then the students get an additional supervisor to talk to, discuss with. From the other side, they also get an international perspective or the international supervisor. And if we have a research where our masters or PhDs are working on, then the staff members, the faculty is also getting some benefit because there is an international collaboration, and then we can prepare better research papers, research outputs with international, the joint international activities. And this is also something that I say some of the funding agencies which appreciate it. So in one of the projects where we had some success is that in the web page, let's say we have 10 universities, and each university is presenting their staff member. So each staff member has maybe 5 lines or 10 lines about his background, the specialty, and then he can also choose from, let's say, 20 keywords. So 10 universities, 5 staff members from each university. Then we have a director of 50 people. And we say to new master students, you can, if you want a co-supervisor from another country, you can just go to this webpage, search there, write your specialty. So if one student writes, for example, water resource management, then from that 50 people, then you will get maybe 8 persons who have this specialty. And then they can continue the dialogue. And so this is a kind of a more or less it's an automated system, but of course you need to have someone to push and to maintain this network and say that, yes, this is what you should do and promote this. And then we, of course, one of the blessings of COVID was that all the universities in the world now we know how to do online lectures. And the number
Some
of
us don't like it. But we know how to
yes,
do it.
of course. But I think the Zoom fatigue is coming when we are doing 100% of our lectures
Yeah,
on Zoom,
right.
right?
I think that's,
Yeah.
I think that's true. And
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think you could, Vlad just did, you could talk about the impact of the Russian invasion on changing things in your network and our networks and so forth. And how to respond to that in the future. But if you do look at the COVID impact the previous 2 to 3 years, I think it's changed networks, and there have been some diminutions in them to some degree. But there have also been a realization that we can actually do things by Zoom without flying to Almaty or Tashkent or wherever. And, still continue to collaborate on research. And I mean, it's not the same as actually being there doing field work and really socializing, the social networking with the fun part of the interaction. So you still got to try to do that if you can. But in between, though, it used to be when we were going to Kazakhstan, maybe a couple times a year, it seemed like there was a big sort of dead period in between meetings.
Of course.
Right? Now, depending on your Kazakh colleague, that could be very productive, and they could use that time to do what they agreed to do and provide you with data or whatever, and then you could get back to them with a finished article or something like that, and that turned out to work. But still, you didn't really pick up the phone. Maybe you even send an email to keep in touch on a weekly basis. But at least for a time there, I was meeting with an Uzbek colleague every week, Thursday mornings by Zoom. And that was much different than it used to be.
Yeah. I remember that like 3 years ago or 4 years ago, when we wanted to have these type of Zoom meetings, and there were many protests saying, no, our internet is not working, we don't have a camera, we don't have this and that. No one complains now.
Still happens, but still.
Yeah, but it's much, of course, there are sometimes unstable internet, but it has become much less. And what we are thinking is now to these summer schools, what we have, we are going to have like 3 weeks. We want to see if we can do it as a hybrid way, so that not only the from one side, not only the participants physically present can follow this, but others who wish, they can also join. And also sometimes we don't have funding to provide stays longer than 2-3 weeks. So then we can have, maybe we can double the length by partially doing something from home. So I think this opens a number of ways to keep things alive. Of course, that we also see that, when we meet, when you have meetings, everyone is working enthusiastic, and then it's dead until next visit.
It's those long plane flights that you don't have to do quite so often.
Yes.
It's also a reason
Yeah.
for doing this kind of networking.
I think the other side of this though is that when we were at some sort of a steady state, right? Was apportionment projects, including international ones. Now that we can make the national colleagues every morning, what happens without time? It was working fine for us when we knew these trips happen once a year, twice a year. Now everything is almost like cell phones, right? With text messages. We used to write letters. So while there's definitely a breadth, sacrificing that. So this is an interesting question. How do we balance now that breadth is available? How do we balance with the form factor, rights to optimize the benefit of the project? How
Yeah,
much
without killing yourself, which I think you're doing now. But also, how do you make decisions about where your priorities should go, right? Like you had some interesting comments there, slides about choosing and how to collaborate and what kinds of activities were important and how your network grew. Is there an optimal size in a network? Do you have to have some decision framework to help you decide when it's not really worth it to you to do it because it's too much work or there's too many people and you got to make your choice about what you really want to do without killing yourself.
This is something a senior faculty member could advise on the juniors, but I have been so bad on this. I've been trying to discipline myself. Like, I can clean my table saying that, okay, this I should delegate it to Zakar or to someone else. But the moment I clean my schedule, I'll fill it with something else. So it's like it's a never-ending story. So I don't know. There must be people like senior researchers, senior staff members that will say that yes, okay, this is what you should do. We should not do this and that. This is done in many of the private consultancy companies. They are much more disciplined than us academics.
Time is money.
Time is money. And they say that, yes, if you work more than 8 hours, then you start writing overtime, which you get paid for. In academia, there's no tradition to that. And you will work in the morning before you come to the office. And after you go home, you start working on this. It's a never-ending thing, Saturdays and Sundays. And
destroys your family life.
Yes. So that's why it's a lot of sacrifices that you have to do. It's because not not the dilemma, but it's the strange thing is that no one asks you, no one forces you to do this. We ourselves, we create this.
So can there be a review paper on the subject? What I mean is, when not mentioned, when is it? The question is when do you stop growing in that book? I don't know size as opposed to building this one to expand until it's not as manageable anymore, or benefits reach saturation, like you have the point of diminishing returns. But when Norm was talking about the size of the network, I was also thinking maybe it's also the question of connectivity. In other words,
you can have a large network if you're not really that well connected, right?
So it's how these individual nodes are connected and the way they interact. Optimizing that can make the network of the same size less or more useful, right? So going back to my first question is, with all this experience you have, I think others would like to have this. Can you see your presentation also a counterpart in the format of a review paper? Let's say published with the research or?
Yeah, yes, certainly. I think there are a lot of experience and maybe even benchmarking that you can present. But the problem, the challenge which I am going to have is that I don't have a clear idea about what is best. Right.
You know
So-
what's not, what you know what's not working, right? And you know what's working.
What's not working, I can say. What are the challenges? Like, so we have a project with the west coast of Americas and Japan and Norway in between. It's virtually impossible to have a Zoom meeting where everyone is awake.
So Greg and Katsuki and you.
Yeah. So it's impossible, right? So even and you are in the middle, and I'm saying, yeah. And then the other thing is that's one real problem. The other thing is that when we are going to have project meetings, but all of these people are leading scientists. They are busy with different things, and they cannot. It's impossible, almost impossible, to find 3 days to come together in one place. Right. So then the question is, okay, shall we then divide our networks, or shall we limit our networks? Then of course that we are going to do something. This international, geographical networking has a value. So when we had this project only with Eurasia, it was very nice and compact, and we felt that we had the control over, everyone had the control over, because it's Norway, Eastern Europe, like Ukraine, Belarus, and then the Central Asia. It's easy to come together, and we had a common language, Russian language, which we speak in the whole, the working language is Russian. So band together and work together. And it was also much easier to have the social bonding, because we also had our youth in the former Soviet Union. Right? It also brings some additional factors to how to networking among the Soviets. And then you start thinking, okay, this is fine, collaborative projects, capacity building, but as faculty members, you also would like to engage in some high-end research. And if we are going to do high-end research with all the members that we have, or most members we have from Eurasian countries, then most of them, the majority of them will fall out. So then the question is, shall we then pick the best of best universities from Kazakhstan, ignore the others, or find a balance between them? So what we are doing is a balance thing, and we have some projects where we do not have any ambitions to run after the high-end research, but we show that what we do, and we try to drag them into, but it is not the basic foundation for this network.
Also, this is, because the example of Kazakhstan and Russia being a comfortable medium. What I'm thinking is, in this community, right, you are a key participant. You are part of this community, but you're also part of the other community, European research community, right?
Yeah.
And they benefit greatly from being part of it. And I think it's those sort of points in this network which are to go with. Because Kazakhs, they have no idea how research is not Europe.
Yes.
For them, you would window to that part. So going back to the question of connectivity, not all nodes have the same function. But many other nodes in this network.
So yes, this is true, and I know that our first project with the Eurasian project has given on parallel opportunities to our Eurasian partners. So it's not only what I am thinking, this is what they have told me. So even collaborating only with Norway, it has been a great opportunity for them. But we have managed to put them together with some project meetings, the back-to-back project meeting, when we have one project meeting, let's say 3-4 days with the Eurasian team, and then we have another project with European team, and then we have this overlapping day. So the advantage for those two teams is that they get to know new partners from each country. So for example, German partners, they know that their own funding schemes, and they need to have partners from, for example, Eurasia, and they can directly work with them. And some of our partners, Eurasian partners, they have got contacts with you, Vlad, through our project. So there are lots of opportunities. But
maybe we can wait to that.
Yeah.
We can talk about that. So I have some of the things that
yeah,
both MSU and
Yeah.
So just really use
It's accelerating something. But
network of networks.
Yeah.
That's what it's.
Right. And, I think this notion of the nodes and connections between the nodes is interesting. And at least from my experience with Kazakhstan, I know they have national requirements that all PhD candidates need to have a foreign member on their committee, right? And so I've been asked to be on several committees from time to time. And it's maybe that's where you do the limiting or choice kind of thing. In other words, one of the focus points might well be in providing support and connectivity through being on a PhD students committee that then turns into a longer relationship. Maybe. Now you're expected to both provide an international perspective on the person's work, and it has to be in your field, something you're interested in. But it's also because they're concerned about rankings, and they're concerned about getting published in international journals with high ratings and so forth. It's partly the US or European faculty member on their committees that's supposed to help them to get that dissertation partially published, at least in some ways. I don't know that we need to have rules about that kind of thing, but I could see how just taking this Kazakh idea and sort of broadening it to other country relationships and just being a little bit careful that you don't get on too many committees so that you can't possibly manage it. But that's one of the measures of connectivity.
It's also good as a mechanism for doing this. And it's also a good one because wherever you go, things differ. But one thing that's common is to have to guide students, right? So
It's different rules from countries, and I like this Kazakh rule in some ways. But
wherever you go, it's typically not one advisor. It's a group of advisors. That's one common
Yeah.
giving the network that can evolve through time.
I can close this now, right?